Our tale starts at a massive gate. There's a guard standing there, and someone walks up and shows him a badge. The guard says, "The Devastator corpse disposal team is fighting inside. Don't go into the dungeon." Our hero goes through the gate, finds a place with statues and a corpse in front of him, and there's a girl and a boy standing before a dragon. Suddenly, our hero appears behind them. The boy asks, "Who are you?" Our hero shows that he's from the Devastator corpse disposal team, and his name is Yuga. The girl is shocked and says, "The Devastator corpse disposal team?" Yuga stands in front of the dragon, takes off his clothes, and suddenly his form changes, his body gains power. Yuga casts a magic spell that appears beneath the boy and the girl. They're stunned when they see the magic circle. Suddenly, a dragon appears with Yuga riding it. The blue dragon charges at Yuga and his dragon, and the boy and girl get scared when they see that. Then Yuga and his dragon take to the air. He calls out to the boy and girl and says, "Let's go." The dragon unleashes fiery power at the blue dragon and sets it ablaze. The boy and girl are shocked when they see that. Then Yuga tells his dragon, "Get back." And the boy and girl can't believe what happened, saying, "Is that man the forbidden necromancer?" Then we see the corpse disposal team in a place with a monster. Yuga is there cutting up the monster's corpse. His captain shows up, his name is Daigoro, and says, "Don't let your guard down. The hell lizard's body contains a deadly venom. Even the slightest touch on skin will kill you. You can make up for not having a skill with experience." We learn that Yuga is in the corpse disposal team, disassembling monster bodies and turning them into materials, and he has no skill. 7 years ago, places suddenly appeared called dungeons, and monsters came out of them, throwing the world into chaos. Amid all that, magical power emerged from the dungeons, and humans gained skills. Some of them got a power called Jaeger, and they became able to face the monsters. Even so, my skills never showed up. Back to the present, Kiriko is on the team with him, and she tells Yuga, "You've gotten good." Yuga gets flustered when Kiriko says that. A teammate named Satoru says, "What's up with you? Why's your face so red?" Kiriko says, "Yuga is sweet." Yuga says, "Please don't tease me." Satoru says, "I can see you're improving." Kiriko says, "At this rate, Yuga's going to surpass you." Then Yuga takes the part he finished and puts it in the box, and says, "These materials are for researching unknown medicines. If we take them to the Jaeger Association, we can exchange them for a fitting reward." Someone takes one of the materials and tells Yuga, "These are for those who can take down monsters," and he tosses the bag at Yuga. Yuga's in the demolition corpse disposal team, basically subcontractors hired by the Jaeger company for a small reward. Because we're subcontractors, we can't challenge Jaeger clients, even though we're upset. Yuga goes to sit with his team at a restaurant. Satoru says, "Didn't you wish you could be a Jaeger?" Yuga says, "No." Kiriko tells them, Yuga's father and mother were S-rank Jaegers. Satoru is shocked when he finds out and says to Yuga, "Your dad and mom were S-rank?" Kiriko says, "There are only a few like that." Yuga says, "I wanted to be one of them. But 7 years ago, when the monsters attacked, my dad and mom disappeared, and my sister Rina couldn't walk because of her injury." Satoru says, "So your parents had skills and you don't have any?" Yuga says, "No." Kiriko gets angry and grabs him by the clothes. Yuga says, "I still haven't given up. If I could get a Jaeger power, I'd let my sister live. The reason I took the corpse disposal job is because I want to be close to Jaegers. That's why I want to become a Jaeger like them." They encourage him to become a Jaeger. Then Captain Daigoro says, "Let's go to the next site." Satoru says, "We're not taking a break?" Yuga tells Daigoro, "I like corpse disposal." Daigoro says, "I know." Satoru says, "You like a corpse disposal job that requires 3 conditions?" Daigoro grabs him and asks, "Which 3 conditions?" Satoru says, "That's what I'm talking about." And Yuga still wants to be a Jaeger. Then we see Captain Daigoro heading to the gate location. He tells them, "This is a C-rank gate." Yuga is surprised when he hears that. Satoru says, "Your first C rank, Yuga. You scared?" Yuga says, "None of that." The captain says, "Even if the rank's higher, what needs to be done is the same as now." They go through the gate and find dead monsters. Kiriko says, "Yuga, you know the dungeon rumor? They say human souls that die in the dungeons can't find peace and become monsters." They laugh and Satoru says, "You believe stories like that?" Kiriko says, "You want to test it?" Daigoro says, "Better keep talking and we'll leave you here." Suddenly, they find a huge dead monster ahead and see other people standing there. The girl's name is Kagari. Satoru is shocked when he sees her. Daigoro says, "I'm the captain of the corpse disposal team." A guy named Jaeger says to Yuga, "You're using a device, you don't have a skill." Kagari tells him, "Stop what you're doing." Jaeger tells Yuga, "A person without a skill is simply incompetent, and corpse disposal teams are crazy people who enjoy gutting monsters. It wouldn't be surprising if there are incompetents among them." Yuga is bothered by his words. He uses his power and tells Yuga, "Don't get cocky, I could turn you to charcoal." But Kagari stops him, uses her power, and protects Yuga. She says, as a team captain, I can't watch you do that and stay silent. Jaeger leaves them and walks off. Kagari goes to Daigoro and says, we'll be waiting outside. Let us know when you're done. Yuga says, Kagari really deserves to be called the daughter of skills. Then Kiriko comes over and asks, are you okay? Daigoro tells Yuga, there's nothing to be embarrassed about. No one can do what we do. Whether you have a skill or not doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what they say, what matters is you be yourself. Let's begin. Jaeger wants to leave, but Kagari says, didn't you promise you'd stay here? He says, we could ask HQ to deliver these things, and the team captain saw me land the finishing blow on the boss. Let's go. They all leave the gate, and Kagari leaves with them. Back to the corpse disposal team, Yuga is thinking, if something like that happens, what I have now won't last. Suddenly the monster looks at Yuga. He tells them, the monster's still alive. The monster gets back up again. The Jaegers failed to confirm the kill. They're scared of the monster. Daigoro says, run to the door. They run toward the door, not knowing what's going on. They reach the door to open it, but Yuga is shocked when he sees a massive boulder hurled at them. The monster is the one that threw it. Kiriko yells, the door. Yuga falls to the ground, and the monster charges at him. Yuga isn't moving, but suddenly Daigoro manages to block the monster's blow, using the power of a strong arm. Yuga is shocked when he sees that. Daigoro says, I can't hold on any longer. There's a pit over there, but the monster lands a heavy hit on Daigoro. Yuga and Kiriko are shocked when they see that. Kiriko tells Yuga, we have to run. Yuga says, no, I can't do that. But she grabs his hand and they run. They hide, but Satoru says, what do we do? It's coming at us from there. Kiriko asks him, what skill do you have? Satoru says, wind attribute. She says, you can use Sonic Edge. Satoru says, but that's an offensive technique. Yuga is surprised by what she says and asks, you? She says, we're going to fight the monster. Satoru says, no, that's a C-rank monster. We can't take it, we don't have the experience to win. Kiriko screams and says, I know that, but if we keep running, we'll die. Satoru doesn't know how to use the technique properly, but he activates the Windblade skill and manages to pull it off. Kiriko tells Yuga to stop here. Yuga thinks, in a situation like this, I can't do anything like that. Kiriko tells Satoru, start the attack. Yuga thinks, why don't I have any power? Kiriko and Satoru move in to kill the monster. Kiriko activates her power and manages to stop the monster. She calls to Satoru to strike the monster. Satoru charges the monster, but the monster hits him and finishes him off. Yuga and Kiriko are shocked when they see that. The monster's hand is severed, and Kiriko is down in front of it. Then it lunges at Kiriko and kills her. The monster heads toward Yuga. Daigoro is on the ground. The monster raises its leg and is about to kill Yuga, but Daigoro rushes in and stops the monster before it strikes Yuga. Daigoro tells Yuga to run and not give up. After that, Yuga falls to the ground, looks at Satoru and Kiriko, and says, if only I were stronger, if only I had a skill. Yuga pulls out his weapon and charges at the monster, striking its body with the weapon, and keeps hitting it with everything he's got. Then Yuga finds himself in a strange place and sees a tree growing there, and on that tree are the heads of all his teammates who died. Yuga is shocked when he sees that. Then a terrifying-looking monster appears in front of him. Yuga gets scared the moment he sees the monster in front of him and asks, who are you? The monster says, I'm the ruler of souls. Yuga gets scared and says, souls? The monster says, I can gather the bodies and souls of those who died in the dungeons. Yuga thinks and says, so I'm dead. I can't do anything. I can't save anyone. He remembers his sister, his mother, his father, his friends who died, and his captain telling him not to give up. How can I die without doing anything? The monster asks him, do you want to live? Yuga says, of course I want to live. The monster says, even if you live, what can you do without your skills? You'll be as good as dead. Yuga gets upset and doesn't know what to do. The monster asks, do you want power? Yuga is surprised and says, what? The monster repeats, do you want power? Yuga says, maybe that's true. The monster says, I can give you a skill and send you back to the world, and it's a powerful skill. In the end, that skill will end you. It'll turn you into someone who hunts all souls and kills you. You have the potential to become that. Yuga remembers everything that happened and how people treated him. Yuga cries and says, I couldn't do anything while they died in front of me. If I can avenge my friends, I don't care if I become a killer. The monster grants him a supernatural power, and Yuga falls from a high place. He says, what is this? Where am I? He sees the system and finds that he has a skill. The system shows that Yuga has gained the immortality skill, and the system asks if he wants to activate it or not. Yuga says, I'll activate it. When Yuga decides to activate the skill, his body suddenly changes and transforms into a strange power. Yuga returns to life and stands up again. He looks at his body and says, I look like a monster, but whatever, as long as I can kill the monster. Yuga sprints toward the monster at high speed. The monster looks at him in disbelief. Yuga jumps up and attacks the monster, landing a powerful powerful blow that breaks the monster's arm. The monster glares at him and hits him hard, sending him flying. Yuga crashes to the ground with a heavy thud. He looks at his body and arms and sees they're broken, but the healing power helps Yuga return to normal again. Yuga is shocked to see his body restore itself. A message pops up from the system telling him the healing effect doesn't run out. It persists with you. Yuga says, "So I won't die, even from mortal wounds. But my body still hurts." The monster then charges at Yuga and smashes him with a powerful blow of its hand to finish him. The monster lifts its hand to see what happened to Yuga, and Yuga gets up and stands again, still alive, though his face and body are wrecked. Yuga says, "Let's see who lasts till the end." The monster roars in Yuga's face, but Yuga jumps onto the monster, leaps up, and strikes it with a strong blow in the eye. Then Yuga falls to the ground and injures his arm, but notices it's returning back to normal. The monster attacks him and stomps on him with its foot, crushing him and pinning him to the ground. Yuga is stunned to find he's still alive. The monster charges him again and hits him hard in the body, and Yuga's arm is torn off. The monster grabs a huge boulder, rushes at Yuga, and smashes him with it. But a system message appears to Yuga saying, when the skill points reach 0, the immortality feature will be deactivated. Yuga says, "I have to finish it off." The monster hits him hard, and Yuga doesn't know what to do. Suddenly, a strange power appears on Yuga, and power flows out from the bodies of his team and heads toward Yuga. His team turns into skeletons. Yuga remembers Kiriko telling him about a rumor that the souls of people who die in the dungeon don't find peace. Yuga sees his team has become skeletons. A system message appears and asks Yuga if he wants to become the leader of these corpses. Yuga remembers what the monster told him about being able to control the dead, and says, "So that's what he was talking about. I'll go to my team." Yuga goes to the captain, takes his power, and gathers the team to attack the monster. The monster charges at them, trying to hit them, but the captain creates a shield and blocks the monster's strike. Yuga is shocked when the captain does that. Yuga tells them to attack the monster. The captain lands a powerful blow and the monster falls to the ground. Yuga says, "I can see they're moving the way I think." He checks their skills and tells them to fight with him. He tells Satoru to attack, and Satoru activates his skill, Windblade, and slashes the monster's leg with a powerful strike of his sword. Yuga says, "Next, attack." Kiriko activates the Earth's Venom skill, uses a stone bow, and shoots arrows at the monster, but it tries to block them. Then the captain attacks the monster, grabs it by the leg, activates his skill, yanks the monster by its leg, hurls it far away, and slams it into the rocks. Yuga looks and sees the monster on the ground. The monster gets up and charges them, but they attack and make the ground hold it in place. Yuga says, "I won't let you go." And it turns out Kiriko did that using her skill. Yuga says, "I'll finish you." Satoru gets ready and grips the sword. The captain takes the sword, and Yuga orders him to attack the monster. The captain takes the sword to strike the monster, throws it with all his strength at the monster, and the sword flies at it, shattering the rocks, then shoots upward. Yuga jumps, grabs his sword, and strikes the monster in the eye with it. Yuga lands on the ground after that, and the monster falls and doesn't get up again. System messages pop up to Yuga telling him about the skills. Yuga pulls out his dagger and says, "I have to take revenge," and charges at the monster. But the captain stands in front of him and stops him from doing that. The captain looks at him, and Yuga remembers him standing there looking at him. Yuga apologizes to him. Then Yuga returns to his normal form and says, "What the monster said was true." Then Yuga feels weak and collapses to the ground and says, "This is the skill's backlash." Yuga can't get up and says, "Thanks to the team, I was able to defeat the monster." Yuga wakes up and finds himself in the hospital, not knowing where he is. He asks, "Where's my team?" When he remembers what happened, he jolts up, terrified, and says, "Everything that happened in the dungeon." He remembers his captain charging at the monster and says, "The whole team died." But this skill, he taps something called inventory, and finds his team there. Suddenly, someone knocks on the door. Yuga tries to hide the system window. The door opens and it's his sister Rina. She's shocked to see her brother awake, runs to him and says, "You idiot. When I heard about the dungeon death incident, I thought my heart would stop." But Yuga isn't really focused on her. He's thinking about the skill he has. Then his sister looks at him and says, "I know you work for my sake, but I don't want you to do anything wrong, because I don't want to lose anyone else in my family." Yuga calms her down. Suddenly, Kagari and Jaigura walk in. They're surprised when they see them. Kagari says, "Sorry for the sudden visit." Jaigura says, "We didn't need to come here." Kagari says, "I saw the incident on the cameras and it was a tragic scene, and what happened was our responsibility. I just came to apologize to you." Rina says, "They're from Jaigura." Kagari says, "Rina, your name was in Yuga's file." She introduces herself and says she's from Jaigura. Rina thanks her for saving her brother, but Jaigura responds rudely. Yuga gets annoyed by his words. Kagari tells him to stop what he's doing. Yuga tells Rina to step out because he wants to talk with them. Rina says okay and heads out, saying, I'm sure your work has secrets. But Kagari stands in front of her and says, I'm coming with you. Jaigura annoys her with his words, and Yuga gets irritated and says, I've got nothing to say to you, can you leave? Jaigura says, I'll think about it if you pay me the reward money. We're the ones who brought you here. Yuga says, you did that? Jaigura says, I said we should leave you. No point wasting our effort on you. Yuga gets upset at that. Jaigura says, you entered the dungeon and chose to work, knowing the risks. Whatever happens to you is your responsibility. Yuga thinks to himself, everything was my choice. I understand all that. He remembers what the monster told him. Yuga says, wasn't it because you couldn't finish off the monster? Jaigura says, you and your team, when you chose to be a corpse disposal team, you were basically saying your lives had no value. Yuga says, how can you say that? He gets angry at him. Kagari is standing outside and hears everything. Yuga is yelling at Jaigura. Jaigura gets mad, lunges at him and grabs him, but Kagari steps in and tells him to let Yuga go. She uses her power and pushes him away, then apologizes to Yuga and says she'll apologize to the families of the deceased. Yuga says the captain and the rest of the team don't want to hold anyone responsible for what happened. Suddenly, someone walks in and says, someone activated a skill in here. Jaigura gets up. Kagari says, it was a misunderstanding. The person is named Shinza, and he says to Yuga, I'm Shinza, a skill investigator from the Jaigura Association. Yuga is surprised to learn Shinza is a skill investigator. Shinza says, I'll examine now using my skill analysis, because there are many puzzling points in the incident. I heard your team was killed, yet we can't find their bodies. Where did they disappear to? And how was a rank C monster defeated? That means there was someone rank C or higher, yet the only ones there were the corpse disposal team. Using unregistered skills is illegal, so I need to verify your abilities. Jaigura says, no way this guy has abilities. Shinza activates his ability, and Yuja says, when an ability gets activated, it gets registered with the Jaeger Association, and someone irregular like me, if I get discovered using a cursed skill, I wouldn't be surprised if they treated me like a lab rat. Then the window pops up and shows Shinza Yuja's info, and says there are no skills, so Yuja is shocked as soon as he hears that. Kagari and Jaeger are standing there waiting to find out if Yuja has any skills or not, but Shinza tells them the investigation's over, looks like we jumped the gun doing this, thanks for your time, and leaves. Jaeger says, I told you this guy doesn't have skills, he's using a window device, and he walks out. Then, Kagari tells Yuja, my little brother was like you, no skills. Even so, I thought I could protect him. I was arrogant. If you run into any trouble, you can call me, and she leaves. Shinza is walking in the garage and gets into his car. Then Jaeger comes up and asks him why he investigated Yuja for having a skill. Shinza says, we at the Jaeger Association aim to investigate new types of skills. Jaeger says, I know that well. Shinza says, then you should understand why we investigated him. Who defeated a rank C monster? Kagari shows up and says, the 3 members of the corpse disposal squad and the rest of the monster disappeared. That's what I said in the hospital room. Shinza tells them, with a massacre like that, it's not normal to preserve all the remains. The real issue is that the remains were still there. There was nothing left at the scene except signs of destruction. At the scene were the 3 deceased corpse disposal members and Yuja. None of them have combat experience, and none of them have the skills to take down a monster like that. Kagari asks, is there a new type of skill? Shinza says, yeah, an ability that can erase remains and take down a rank C monster. If that skill really exists, then we have to put it under surveillance. Kagari says, we mentioned Yuja because he was the only one who survived the monster. Shinza says, it was wrong to say the one who did it was Yuja, and finding out it wasn't him wasn't important anyway. Then Shinza gets into his car and drives off. Jaeger says, an ability that can take down a rank C monster. Kagari says, the association would want to track any Jaeger like that. Jaeger says, a Jaeger of rank B or higher. Kagari imagines someone rank B or higher, thinking, a skill that can hide corpses. What could that be? We cut to Rina, sleeping next to Yuja. Yuja wakes up and finds her sleeping beside him. He remembers his memories with his family, and remembers the day his father and mother left him and his sister, with his father telling him, don't look back and run, and his mother saying, don't let go of Rina's hand. Yuja runs off with his sister, and there's a huge monster behind them. We return to the present, and Yuja is sitting next to his sister, and hears her say Dad and Mom, so he holds her hands, opens the system window, and activates the immortality skill. He finds it says the immortality skill is hidden and protected, so people won't know about it. 3 days later, Yuja goes out with his sister Rina, and they're walking down the street. Rina asks Yuja if he's sure he's okay to leave the hospital. Yuja says he's fine. The tests showed nothing wrong with him. Rina says, You go on, I'm going to buy some stuff. I'm going to make a surprise for you, to celebrate you getting discharged. Yuja asks if she'll be okay alone. She says, you know how much I get around on my own. Then she leaves him and walks off. Yuja keeps watching her, remembering what Jaeger said when he was harassing Rina. He thinks, someone like that is a Jaeger, and if your status is high, you're trash. I wanted to be a Jaeger. I want to be a shield for people like my family. I wanted to be a sword to fight monsters. I thought that could actually happen. He remembers when Shinza tried to check his skill and saw that his skill was protected and hidden. Even if I have a skill, I can't do this out in the open. That's why I can't be a Jaeger. When I made a deal with the monster, I can't be a Jaeger for the rest of my life. Then suddenly he sees people running, and officials saying that an E-rank dungeon has been opened, telling people to run. Yuja remembers Rina and looks over to see the gate open, with monsters coming out attacking people. Yuja wants to get back to Rina and says, there's no Jaeger? The monsters attack and kill people, destroying the city, and Yuja drops to the ground. Yuja sees people being attacked while they're on the bus, and a huge monster is attacking people. Yuja remembers his sister Rina and imagines her in the store she's shopping at. The monster destroys the place and barges in. Yuja says, there's no Jaeger, none around. Yuja activates his ability and says, in zombie mode, my physical stats go up, and I can stay alive as long as my magic points are still there. I have to find Rina and get out of here. Yuja sees the monsters attacking a woman with her daughter. He remembers his dad telling him to run. He sees the monsters smashing the place to get to the mother and daughter. He sees the little girl crying. Yuja jumps in and kicks a monster hard. The girl is shocked seeing Yuja manage to hit the monsters. A monster attacks Yuja from behind, but Yuja pulls out his weapon and cuts off the monster's neck. Another monster attacks Yuja, but he blocks it with his knife. Another monster attacks from behind and slashes his body. So Yuja jumps up and comes down on the monster, killing it with the knife. Another monster attacks Yuja, but he manages to kill it with the knife. The mother and daughter warn him about an incoming monster, and Yuja looks over to see a monster charging him with a sword, trying to kill him. Yuja jumps up, dodging the attack, and the monster roars. Yuja says, an orc's head is solid, with the upper half being all muscle, so this knife won't do anything to it. To finish an orc off, you have to go for its leg. He rushes the monster and slices its leg, cutting it off. The monster falls to the ground. Yuja runs, jumps up, and stabs the monster in the head with the knife. The mother and daughter are shocked by what Yuja did and thank him. Yuja tells them, this place is dangerous, you need to run. He looks at all the people getting attacked. If I help every person being attacked, I won't make it in time. The girl tells him, good luck, Mr. Jaeger. He says, I'm not a Jaeger. I don't have any responsibility to save people. I need to save Rina and run. But if I don't stop what's happening, the people here will die. If I attack the dungeon, the monsters inside will die. He stops and apologizes to his sister and gets ready to enter the dungeon. He runs at the monsters. In that moment, I didn't think about what I'd do, and the Jaegers didn't arrive in time, or maybe they just don't care about an E-rank dungeon. I have to be a Jaeger because this skill isn't supposed to be known. I don't have to say who I am. Yuja runs toward the gate. Oh, Yuja gets close to the gate, and a monster is coming out of it. He notices the gate has separate entrance and exit points. Without a skill, he can't open the dungeon door. If it doesn't open, I can't raid the dungeon, and I won't be able to save anyone. I know I have a skill, but it's a cursed skill. Yuja uses his ability to open the dungeon, and is surprised when the dungeon opens. Then he goes in and finds a large number of monsters inside. Yuja thinks, lots of orcs here and close to the exit. He activates his skill, pulls out his knife, rushes a bunch of monsters, and kills them all with the knife. Then he sees a huge minotaur standing next to him. Yuja says, I knew you'd be here. You're the boss, right? You're rank C like the giant I killed. Yuja isn't sure how he's going to beat all these monsters. They charge him, but Yuja uses his ability and summons Yuja's team, asking them to help fight. The monsters attack them. Yuja says, we need to split the front line. He uses his ability, and they rush in. Kiriko charges and makes an explosion on the ground, but the monster dodges and counterattacks. The leader grabs one of the monsters and kills it. Yuja looks at the leader and says, you're up. The Minotaur takes its cross. Yuja says, the monster's upper body is strong and lower body agile, but its weak point is the waist. The Minotaur grabs the cross and charges Yuja and his team, but the leader blocks the cross. The leader activates his power to attack the monster. The Minotaur grabs another cross and hurls it at them, but they dodge the attack. Kiriko attacks the monster and hits it with an arrow, striking its eye. The leader rushes it and slashes its belly with a sword. Satoru jumps in and lands a heavy blow, breaking one of its horns. Yuja charges the Minotaur and slices it with the knife, cutting it in half. The Minotaur screams. Yuja jumps and breaks its other horn. Then Yuja sees the Minotaur shedding tears and says, this is the first time I've seen that. But with that, I'm done with the dungeon. And Yuga is standing there. not understanding why the gate didn't close. We go to the shop where Rina is, and the monsters start floating upward. People see the monster as it begins to fall, and they say the dungeon has been invaded because the dungeon's power disappeared. That's why the monsters can't survive when the parent dies. The child dies. Rina is standing behind them and tells them there are people putting themselves in danger. They look around for who's talking but don't see anyone. Rina had gone to the elevator, thinking about what that person said. When the parent dies, the child dies. She thinks and says, "I'm fine, but I'm worried about my older brother." Then she gets out of the elevator and remembers her memories with her family. Yuga tells his dad and mom they're S-rank Jaegers, and there are only a few of them in the world. His mom tells him that's true. Yuga says they repeatedly respond to low-rank dungeon invasion requests. "I heard the strong Jaegers don't go to low-rank dungeons because the rewards are small." His dad says that's right. Low towers have low danger, and that's the reason. They neglect those kinds of dungeons, and the monsters attack people, and there are casualties. We can't reach them in time to save them. Maybe it's a trivial number of people, but Yuga, if Rina were among those people, would you ignore her as just a small number? That's why you need to be strong. Yuga and Rina are happy with their father's words. Their father says, "I think I overdid it." Yuga says, "I'll become a Jaeger and protect people." Then we go to Yuga, who's standing in front of the gate, thinking, "I'll leave the rest to the association. I need to get out of here before someone discovers me." When Yuga looks at his team, he sees they're still ready. Suddenly, a strange power comes out of the core and returns to his body, but its form changes, and this monster is called a B-rank behemoth. So the monster evolved, and this phenomenon happens suddenly. He thinks, "Can I beat this monster?" The monster roars, and suddenly more monsters come out. They're coming from the gate. Yuga thinks, if I don't defeat this monster, there will be casualties, and Rina could be one of them. He tells his team to attack the monsters, and he'll go for the boss. They then charge the monsters. Yuga thinks, their weapons are huge fangs and a long tail. If it attacked me, it could have finished me. The boss attacks and lands a strong hit on Yuga, and hits his team too. The boss charges with its horn and kills him. Yuga feels like there are a lot of skulls beside him, and he feels his heart in the darkness of death. He opens the system window and uses healing magic, and Yuga returns to normal. But the monster attacks him again, and drives its horn into his body. It then throws him against a pillar and Yuga falls to the ground. Yuga looks and sees the monster charging at him, but suddenly he hears someone talking to him. He sees the monster in front of him and notices its movement stopped. He asks the monster, "Why are you here? Did you do this?" The monster says, "It's a simple matter for me to be here. I want to ask you a question. Why are you still fighting?" Yuga is surprised by what it says. The monster tells him, "When I was there before, you wanted power to get revenge, and you managed to do that. So, the reason to fight is over." Yuga says, "I'm fighting to protect people." The monster says, "Like your father and mother did. I saw your memories, parents who risked their lives as heroes. You also wish to be like them. But what did humans do for them? Because you failed to stop what happened 10 years ago. Since you had no abilities, people said they weren't up to the responsibility, mocked them, and treated your father and mother badly. That's the true nature of the humans you want to protect. There's no reason to save them. Admit you want power out of hatred. Surrender, and I'll give you greater power." Yuga thinks, there are a lot of bad people, and I've gone through a lot of bad experiences, and nothing changed. And when I used power for the first time, I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel bothered. But I understood then, from the feelings I can suppress because I have strength, and the people I want to keep alive, people I wanted to spend more time with. I wanted to save everyone with all my strength, at least those within reach. That's the kind of person my dad and mom showed me to be. That's why I fight. I'll keep fighting to protect humans. If you understand, give me your power." The monster says, "I'm a little entertained. I want to see how long you'll keep saying that," and it gives Yuga power. Yuga manages to return the captain to his original form. The monster charges at Yuga, but the captain grabs its leg. Satoru also returns to normal, uses his power, and strikes the monsters. The boss is surprised. Yuga tells Kiriko to attack the boss. Kiriko uses her ability to make the ground gather around the boss. The monster transforms and stands with Yuga. They all stand behind him. Yuga understands and says, "The more I kill, the more monsters I'll have with me." No. This isn't just about a monster. The monster tells Yuga that the team he has now is stronger than when it was alive. The monster roars, but Yuga tells the monsters to attack the boss. They try to strike it, but the boss is strong and kicks Yuga. Yuga pulls out his dagger and strikes the boss, saying, "I'll drain all your life force from the inside." When he pulls the dagger out, the monster falls to the ground and becomes a skeleton. The monster tells Yuga, "You're going to entertain me." Yuga says, "Yeah, even if I can't become a Jaeger, what I do won't change, just like my dad and mom." The monster says, "Fighting while hiding your identity is disgusting," and gives Yuga power, telling him it's a farewell gift.